Hey everyone, Deadly Dynamic Duo here, and I'm back with the fourth installment of my gaming and true crime stories. That it took me a while to kind of think of what I wanted to cover for this one. I did think that I was going to try to cover some of the DC serial killer, but since that's still relatively new, there's not that much information yet for it, so I thought I'm gonna put that on the back burner for another date. And I just have it on Skyrim since I've been basically playing Skyrim. So we are going to actually try to cover this. It is called the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. Texarkana is a sleepy town that is split between both Texas and Arkansas. Over the spring of 1946, a ruthless serial killer held the citizens of Texarkana in a state of perpetual fear. Even to this day, even the thought of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders sends chills down the spine of the residents. This elusive killer predominantly targeted young couples parked on Lovel's Lane. Their final attack, however, was committed against a middle-aged couple in their own farmhouse. Despite an abundance of theories and suspects, the identity of the phantom killer still remains unknown. It all began on the night of February 22nd, 1946, when Jimmy Hollis, 24, and his girlfriend Mary Jane Larry, 19, were parked in a secluded corner on a lonely road just off Richmond Road in Texarkana. The young couple had spent the evening at the cinema and decided they would stop down the Lover's Lane for some time before Jimmy jumped and dropped Mary back home. Also, I hate when there's like actually things going on in Skyrim. Probably not like the best game to have kids, right? Because it would be kind of hard to raid and solo. Enough. Don't you just love when your horses just like randomly like run off? Okay. So let me go back to that. The young couple has spent the evening at the cinema and decided they would stop down Lover's Lane for some alone time before Jimmy drops Mary back home. Out of the darkness, a man wearing a white cloth mask, presumably a pillowcase with eye holes, appeared at the car window and shone a flashlight into their eyes. He shoved a gun at the terrified couple and ordered them out of the car, where he proceeded to pistol whip Hollis to the ground. The noise was so loud I thought Jimmy had been shot, said Larry. The noise, however, was Hollis' skull fracturing 3 times from the violent blows. After attacking Hollis, he turned his attention on Larry. The hooded figure smacked Lily across the head with the butt of his gun before telling her to run. Larry, who was wearing high heels, attempted to run towards the road, but she was chased down by the assailant and hit over the head once again. She fell to the ground, and the man sexually assaulted her with the barrel of his gun. The gruesome act wasn't initially reported in the media at the time. Police thought it was too vulgar, some mention I thought by leaving it out of the media, they could weed out false confessors. Go ahead and kill me. She spat. Moments later, headlights from an oncoming car scared the attacker away. Both Hollis and Larry were rushed to the hospital where they miraculously both recovered from their injuries, but not without psychological trauma that would plague them for the rest of their lives. I mean, of course that was gonna plague them. I mean, you were attacked at gunpoint and the person literally beat you unconscious and then like leaving you for dead, and then he sexually assaulted your girlfriend. I mean, that's trauma. You're gonna have PTSD from that. I mean, and especially this is back in the 40s, so I mean, mental health, it's still not really in a good place still in 2022, so I can imagine it being even worse back then. Like, you don't really have access to get therapy and everything like you would need. But around a month later, on the 24th of March, Richard Griffin, 29, and his girlfriend Polly Ann Moore, 17, were found shot dead in Griffin's car, which was parked on an isolated road called Rich Road Griffin. A World War II veteran was slumped over in the front seat, dead from 2 bullet wounds. Moore was hurled out in the back seat of the car. She had been raped and then shot in the head. A bloody patch of land nearby suggested that the couple had been shot outside the car and then placed back inside, ready to be found. Rain had washed away any potential footprints, but police found 30.32 slugs, possibly from a Colt. Following this attack, people realized that a sadistic killer was on the loose in their quaint town. As citizens were reeling from his gruesome murder, they would be rocked. Another death 3 weeks later. I mean, it is a killer, and unfortunately, a lot of them feel like, hey, I'm gonna just be doing these killings until, like, the police get me. Betty Jo Booker, 15, was an A student and an avid saxophone player, and played each Saturday night with a group called the Ruth Mayors, and that Saturday night was no different. At around 1:30 a.m., Booker's friend Paul Martin, 16, who she had known for 10 years, picked her up. The friends stopped at Spring Lake Park, which was just a few minutes from Booker's Sussex Downs home. The following morning, Martin's body was discovered on the edge of North Park Road. He had been shot 4 times. 1 bullet entered the back of his neck and exited through the front of the skull. 1 entered through the left shoulder. 1 went through his right hand, and the final 1 went in his face. A search party was assembled to look for Booker. 6 hours later, her body was discovered behind a tree around 2 miles from Martin's body. She had been shot once through the chest and once in the face. Man, these are like very gruesome and sad. I mean, it's even more like, okay, it's sad for anyone to die, but like, you know, like when you're even so young, it's like, wow, you're just like a baby. It was theorized that the crime scene had been staged. Her coat was buttoned up to her chin and her hand was in her coat pocket. Official reports would say Miss Booker was raped in the same manner as Miss Moore, noted Sammy Casey, researcher at the East Texas Historical Association. Ballistics has showed that they were killed with the same .32 caliber weapon used in the first killing, Martin's car was found around 3 miles away from Booker's body with the key still in the ignition. As the days went by, with the killer remaining on the loose, fear overran the area. A voluntary curfew was put in place and businesses closed early. Nobody wanted to be caught outside. As sundown approached, terrified citizens raised thousands of dollars, which could be offered to whoever could provide information that would lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. Gun sales went through the roof. The town was truly on edge and fearful for another attack. And they had every reason to be. The killer was still lurking, eyeing up his next victim. On the 3rd of May, Virgil Starks, 37, was sitting down to listen to his favorite weekly radio show in the ranch-style home he shared with his wife, Katie Starks, 36. Suddenly, 2 shots were fired into the back of his head. The shots came through a closed window. Katie, who was upstairs, came rushing down, where she saw her husband standing up with blood rushing down his body. Moments later, he slumped back into his chair. Virgil was dead. Katie ran to grab the phone and call the police, but as she reached the phone, she was shot twice in the face from the same window. Despite her injuries, Katie managed to pull herself up and grab a pistol, which the couple kept in the living room. Blinded by her own blood, which was now streaming down her face, she heard the killer enter the home. Knowing he was coming to kill her, she got up and ran for her life. Katie made it to a neighbor's home, who then alerted the police. Miraculously, Katie survived. An investigation at the scene turned up a flashlight and unidentified bloody footprints. Despite the fact that a different gun was used, .22 caliber shells were found at the scene, and the modus operandi was different than the previous killings. Police announced that the couple were victims of the so-called phantom killer. I'm gonna just say this. Usually, killers do not change their MO, and it could be that this person, because this person never went, first off, always used a .32 caliber, never 22. He also never went to victims' homes. And he also always kind of went for younger victims than ones that were kind of older. So the MO is completely different. And I understand the police just like, well, we've been having these other killings. Let's just put it there. To me, I honestly feel like this could be 2 separate cases, because let's face it, that you probably, this person planned on murdering them and Sue for a long time. It could be, an ex-lover of hers, or just someone random, or one of his friends, or a business partner, So that's like, a lot of possibilities, and it could be where that this person was like, hey, there's these other murders going on, so no one's gonna think of me anyway, so let me just go ahead and do it. That's what, I would never kill anyone, but if there was other murders going on, I would so, be like, okay, let me just go ahead and do it. Even though I'm gonna use a different gun, but apparently they're gonna be like, oh, maybe he changed up. And so, this was going on in the 1940s, so, they didn't have, like, all the testing like we have now. Now I would hope a police would know if more of the crimes had a .32, that the .22 caliber would just be a separate case. I hope they would be smart enough to know that, but let's get into it. So, following the attack on the Starks, the killer faded back into the shadows and never struck again. Eventually, life in Texarkana drifted back to a semblance of normality. Over the years, there have been plenty of theories on the identity of the elusive killer. Hollis and Larry described their attacker as being around 6 feet tall. Hollis said he was a young dark-skinned man under 30 years old, while Larry said he was a light-skinned African-American. As in the case with high-profile murder cases, there were numerous false confessors, one of which was University of Arkansas freshman 18-year-old H.B. Duty Tennyson, who committed suicide in November of 1948. Tennyson left behind a suicide note in which he confessed to the string of murders. The prime suspect in the slayings was Earl Swinney, who came to police attention after an Arkansas trooper who was looking at car theft reports in the area realized that on the night of each attack, a car had been stolen and a previously stolen car abandoned. Weeks after this revelation, a farmer complained that his tenant hadn't paid rent. He gave the officers the tenant's name and the license plate number. The tenant was Earl Swinney, and a run of his police showed the car he was driving had been stolen on the weekend of the Griffin murders. Swinney's wife, Peggy, would subsequently implicate him in the Texarkana Moonlight Murders and describe the murder of Betty Jo Booker and Paul Morton in great detail. Following the confession, however, Peggy made conflicting statements and changed her story, with no physical evidence against him and with Peggy claiming her lawful right to refuse to testify against her husband. Swinney was never prosecuted for the murders. In 1947, Swinney was sentenced to life imprisonment for repeated auto theft, but was released in 1978. Whether or not Earl Swinney was Texarkana's phantom killer is debatable, but there was never another attack following his arrest. Over the ensuing years, hundreds of people were questioned and numerous suspects were interrogated. Thousands of clues have been followed, yet all led to a dead end. Despite the extensive investigation into the murders, the elusive figure that made Texarkana dread sundown still remains unidentified. No, he doesn't. His wife literally described the murders because of what he told her, and she kind of snitched on him. I was like, oh, well, so-and-so, this is how it was done. And then the police like, oh, thank you. We're going to arrest your husband. And then she's like, no, you don't have no evidence. And I'm not going to talk about it. But it's like, but bitch, you just literally told us how he killed these two people. But, you know, like, back then, like, now it's basically he can be arrested even if there's not evidence. Let's face it, you can be put in jail with no fucking evidence now, which sucks because, like, if you really didn't do a bad crime, you're like put away forever. I would hope that, like, you know, people that I really wish our justice system was different and people who are violent criminals are put away and people who aren't, like, gets like a slap on the wrist depending on what they did, and if they do have to do time, like, not that long. But, you know, that's not gonna happen. But basically we know that Swinney did it because his wife told us, like, told the police, like, basically, oh, I know how he killed her, like, I know how he killed the people, like, this is how he killed them, like, and then she realized that he was gonna go to jail. And remember, also, we're talking about the 40s, like, women didn't really have jobs, so, like, she was completely reliant on him as well, which is probably the real reason she decided to not want to talk about what he did. But he still ended up going to prison anyway for a couple of years for, you know, a birthday that was let out, like, in the 70s, and, you know, being locked up from, like, kind of like the, I guess it was like the late 40s to like the mid 40s to the late 40s to like, you know, the late 70s. Like you're old, so it's like you're not really going to be doing much at that age. Because, hold up, how old would he be? Because he would have to have been born in the 20s, I would suspect. So, let's see. I'm gonna just, like, guess how old he is. Yeah, he would have been, like, okay, he might have been, like, 50 or something, you know? But it's still, like, that's kind of older that he might have been like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Or because, you know, they're probably already looking at him. But I feel like he had to be the one to do it. Even though, like, it's not solved, it's considered a cold case. But I feel like his wife did say what happened. And he also could still be alive today, or he could actually be dead. Because we all know, like, the 1940s, like, that wasn't that long ago. And some people kind of live a long life. I just feel like some of these cases could be solved so easily. I also still stand by what I'll say that the other murder that took place in the house has nothing to do with, you know, these murders. And damn, he's like stuck that into the giant's head, like, fuck out of here. I mean, to me, it just makes more sense to that they are separate murderers because, like I said, in the first you know, couple of the murders, that a 32 caliber was used, and the second, like the last one, a 22 caliber was used. Also, the MO changed, even though it was still a couple. It's like it was in their house, so like why would they randomly get a different gun? I mean, even though they know the police were like looking for them, I mean, let's face it, MOs really don't change like that. But hey, they could have been like, okay, the police are after me, let me just, you know, get a whole different gun. Maybe they'll think it's separate. I mean, that is a thought. I mean, that could happen, but to me, I honestly do feel like it would be two separate cases. It could have been someone that had a grudge against them, you know, or really against her husband. So let me know what you think in the comments, and if you did like this brief episode, give it a thumbs up, give us a follow, and have a blessed day, everybody.